Hello, amazing ladies in business. Welcome to the HerStory podcast. I'm your host, Kylie King, the founder of Australian Ladies in Business Initiative, or as we fondly know it, ALIBI. And today I am so excited to be joined by the amazing Teresa Tidball from Tidball Accountancy Proprietary Limited. Not only has Teresa been with the community since the very beginning, when it just started as a mere Facebook community, but she has then gone on to win both the 2023 ALIBI Business Lady of the Year and the 2024 Earthkeeper Award in our official ALIBI Awards. So I am so excited to finally be able to nail her down and speak to us. Thank you so much for joining me today, Teresa.
Thanks for inviting me.
So I just wanted to start by saying welcome and tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So, my name's Teresa Tidball, and I'm the director and tax agent for Tidball Accountancy. So, I've spent the last 12 years in public practice, but before that, my journey into accounting actually started in private industry, and long before that, in the United States, where I'm originally from. So, migrating to Australia and rebuilding my career here gave me a really deep appreciation for reinvention and creating opportunity, especially for women. So today I run a fully cloud-based accounting practice that specializes in equine, that's horse-related businesses. And we support small and medium businesses with tax, bookkeeping, software implementation, and proactive tax planning. But what we really do is help business owners understand their numbers so they can make confident decisions. We're also fully carbon offset and completely paperless, and I'm really passionate about collaboration over competition and raising the standard of our profession through knowledge sharing. At the heart of everything I do is the belief that small changes build into big changes, and it takes only a small step today to start that big change.
Beautiful. So, what got you into accounting? Because not many people are big number fans. I know that a lot of business owners, they don't want to even look at the numbers, touch the numbers. They don't want a bar of it. What made you go, okay, accountancy is my jam?
Well, it started out when I was actually in high school, and I was kind of going, well, I have to decide what to study at college. And I was actually interested in becoming a veterinarian. And then my veterinarian that we used, she actually got bitten by a squirrel when she was trying to file down its teeth. So it damaged her hand and she lost like part of the use of her hand. And that kind of made me rethink being a veterinarian because I was like, I don't want to get bitten by a squirrel. and and I thought, man, it is actually you could get bitten by a dog or anything really, and it's kind of dangerous. It's dangerous, and it's also very high stress. So I started thinking about what else I could do, and it was kind of like one of those things where I woke up and said, you know what, I want to be an accountant. Besides the safety aspect, also you can work in any industry, and there always will be a job. That at least that's my thoughts.
I love the fact that this squirrel that was having a bad day has it changed your whole like your whole journey into something completely different. That's
Yeah,
pretty
I
incredible.
know, right?
And you mentioned in your introduction that you focus mostly on equine businesses, and you do help small businesses, of course, but you mostly focus on equine business. What's it about equine businesses that you were like, I'm going to niche and these are going to be the people I want to play with?
It it actually happened that I have a couple horses and I enjoy riding as a hobby. And so, from that I know a lot of horse people. And when COVID happened, yeah, everything got shut down and we were all at home. And I kind of thought, oh no, how am I going to get new clients? Like, what am I going to do? And I discovered a group run by a business coach just for horse businesses. And I thought, you know what? This is me. I like horses. So I joined that group and I was the only tax agent in there. So what I found, I did a lot of information about what was available for businesses through COVID. And I speak the language of horse. So when I talk to the business owner, they don't have to explain to me, why they need to buy hay or get their horse a massage or anything like that. So it just kind of came naturally. And so from that, it's not the only thing we do, but it just became one of the niche areas because there's not a lot of accountants that understand horses and how their care. And it's not racing because I'm not into racing, but just show jumpers, dressage riders, anything related to the care of the horse. So it could be the person that trims the hooves, the person that does the teeth, the person that makes the saddle pads, anything like that.
Beautiful. I think you brought up a really good point too, because you know the industry. We all, no matter what industry you work in, we all have like those acronyms for things, or we say things that people will look at and go, "What are you talking about? Like, what does that even mean?" And it means something completely different. So knowing that you have an accountant that gets the lingo or gets the slang bits is really important because then you don't have to constantly have to explain why you need something or why you do something the way you do. It's just happens, which is amazing. And I think that shows the importance. If you are going to niche into something, it can be really good in getting those clients. Well, it worked for you during COVID, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So during COVID, because I was the only tax agent in that group, and I was doing lives about JobKeeper and all the information, it was kind of like when people go, "Oh, I need to ask someone, I'll ask Teresa because she knows horses and she's here and she seems to know what's going on."
Beautiful. And you mentioned also that you've migrated to Australia. When you migrated here, was there did you have to redo all your accountancy stuff? Was there different things, like clear differences between the way we do things here in Australia and the way things are done in America?
The tax system, it's I was originally would have said it's very similar, but recently I had to do some US tax returns and um I was looking at it and just going, "Oh my gosh, this is just so tedious and the questions don't make any sense." And that I would say the US system, it's probably not more complicated, but they're both complicated, but the IRS is way harder to work with than the ATO. So if you hate the ATO, well, you'd really hate the IRS.
I was going to say, what's scarier? What's
The
scarier?
IRS, I think. Because they don't have a portal. Like we have a portal where we can log in and link to clients, and there's a lot of pre-fill information coming. As far as I know, still the IRS doesn't have a portal like that, but times are changing all the time. The other thing though with migrating here, I couldn't get a job in accounting initially because I didn't have any Australian experience, even though accounting in terms of like bookkeeping type things, that is the same. It's just the tax and some legislation that's different. So everybody wanted Australian experience, but I didn't have it. So I actually ended up getting a job working as a receptionist and for a company that made accounting software for car dealerships.
Oh,
And they said that they would train me um, for a tech support role in that as well, because that was what I originally had applied for. And then they offered me reception. And I was like, well, that's insulting. And I ended up accepting that job under one. I said, I have one thing. I will not make coffees. And so they said, okay. And they respected that, and that was great because the general manager would actually he'd have guests over and he'd make them their coffees. And I did end up transitioning into tech support there. But once you had that first job, like no one cared after that. You could get a job in accounting and no one said, "Oh, you've only worked a little bit here." Then no one cared.
beautiful. So then you transitioned from that role into your own business. So as a business owner, what would you say so far has been your biggest challenge?
Right. So the biggest challenge, I think that's something that constantly changes because as you keep going in your business, you might find something and be like, oh, this is way worse than that other thing that I thought was so bad. So for me, it's actually balancing the work life with having a toddler and the demands of children, because they are very demanding. And you don't really understand until you have a kid. When people say, I might offend some people, but when they say, I have a dog, so I know what it's like, they don't have a clue. So, and I've never said I have a dog, but I was like, I have pets. It can't be that bad. It's way worse.
They are your toughest customer. And that's why I always say to women that are returning to the workforce, like, make sure you have on your resume customer service and dealing with difficult customers, because if you pick the wrong color cup, your day is screwed. Literally. Like,
Yes.
if you pick that red cup instead of that blue cup, you're done for. So, that's always good to put on your resume as dealing with difficult customers, adapting to change quickly, pivoting where you need to. But no, kids can be rough. And especially if you're a solo trader in a business, so you're working the business and then also being a mum, it's like which plates to juggle. What do you need to get done to make sure that both are happy, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it gave me a new respect for moms in general. So,
So if we flip that then, so that being your biggest challenge, what would you say has been your biggest achievement in your business journey?
well, I had to think hard on this because I don't know if it's just a women thing but we're not good at recognizing our achievements, really. We just go, okay, I did that and move on. And I think I had to actually ask ChatGPT because it knows a lot about me and my business because I talk to it a lot about business stuff. And I was like, I'll
Does
ask
your
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT have a name? Does it have a name, Teresa?
No.
Does it have a name?
And when I asked it if it was going to have a name, what would it would be, and it was like, it didn't give itself a name. It was like, no, no. Yeah, it wouldn't name itself. It said it's just a AI companion or brainstorming partner, something like that.
Oh, I like that. That's nice. A brainstorming partner. That's
Yeah,
great.
it says we bounce ideas around. But when I read what it said about biggest achievement, I was like, yeah, you're right. This is, this is accurate. So, because sometimes, it goes off in tangents. But what it said was building a business that reflects my values. And, it said I have built a values driven, sustainable, respected accounting firm from scratch in a country where I had to rebuild my career. And it's something I never really thought about, but, I came over here. I had no background in any of that. I didn't know the tax. I didn't know anything about accounting in Australia, and I was able to work it out. That's why I struggle when people can't like I have high expectations of people because I have high expectations of myself. And I just don't even think of that as something. I wouldn't have even thought of that because it's just you just have to get on with life. It's like you have to, this is the situation that you're in and this is what you need to do, so you just do it. But that's definitely it. Like I've managed all of that, figured it all out, and have built this business that reflects my values and is also doing things differently, like not necessarily the status quo in terms of accounting, especially with like the environmental initiatives that I've put in.
I think that's an amazing achievement. I think like ChatGPT really smashed it out of the park there because you did. You migrated to a completely different country with different rules and regulations, and then having to, start up scratch and fresh yourself in the new country, let alone now start a business that you've been running successfully for 12 years, is an incredible achievement. Good job, Teresa.
Thanks.
So, what motivates you to keep going? So there's a lot of challenges with like juggling being a mom and a business owner and everything else that's happened. Like we had COVID, as you mentioned, which then knocked a lot of people, which I can't believe has been what, 6 years now, 5, 6 years, which is just how fast time is going. But then, everything else that's happening, what motivates you to keep going and go, let's do some more tax?
I just really like helping people. And I know it sounds weird, but like that tax is how I help people, but um it's something that it's a necessary evil, that you have to do. And so for me, I like that getting people back on track with the ATO, getting them caught up, trying to get them the best result with their tax return to like get, pay the least amount. It's also different with each client, and so it's not like doing the same thing over and over and over. Each one is a different situation, so you can look at it a little bit differently and just it's almost like puzzles. I like doing puzzles, and it's like each client's a puzzle I have to figure out.
It would be very tough, especially at the moment. Well, I'm just saying it would be tough. I'm not doing it, but as a business, I think it would be tough because of everything that's happening. And now they talk about the cost of living crisis, and small businesses are getting all these extra rules, and it's just a financial minefield. You're dealing with people's livelihoods every day, and people, I don't know if it's like just something that everyone expects a tax refund. Everyone expects one, and a lot of people rely on it to come through for whether that gets them through the next couple of months or whether they've been saving or wanting something. They all sort of rely on a tax refund. And then unfortunately, that's not a given. Like you're not supposed to get a tax refund if you've paid your tax properly. So how do you navigate that minefield of customers that I guess with such high expectations and it doesn't work out?
Well, I'm thinking about 2024 because something happened. They changed that one extra offset during the middle of the year, and it went away, but everyone was having to pay. And it was kind of a bummer because they expect that it was the 1050 offset. It didn't get renewed that year, and so people were kind of expecting that. And everyone's return dropped from by about that much, and for a lot of people, it dropped into payable. And it's it's not fun to have those discussions, but I try to talk to them about how they can improve their result. Like it's all about receipts. I mean, I have that conversation a million times. Paperwork, receipts, you need to keep them. And that was just the worst year for that. People get disappointed, but I mean, I guess you don't internalize that, right? It's not my tax return. I'm sad for them, but I don't take it on board. You know, we just talk about how they can improve it for the next year and why like, why is it down from the previous year? That kind of thing. And, when you say everyone expects a tax return, that is very true, even for people that haven't paid any tax. And I don't know how they expect to get a tax return, but somehow they're like, I'm supposed to get a tax return. Like, but you didn't pay any tax. You have to put money in to get it back.
Taxman just takes so much, Teresa. Just takes so much.
Yeah. But
So
when you look at the rate, though, effective rate, right? So if you look at the rate of actual tax versus um, your total gross income, we're not the highest tax country.
mm, that is true. That is true. There are other countries that are higher, but
It
I
still
guess
feels
every country
painful.
is. It does feel painful. And especially if you move into that, where you're just going, you're like, I already pay the tax man, and then you hit that GST threshold, and then you're like, are you serious? Like, what's happening now? So I can understand that some small businesses, especially at this stage, feel like they're constantly forking out money into different things. Um,
Yes.
everyone before paying themselves. And speaking about paying, one of the beautiful members of our community asked a question on a different post, and I wanted to bring it to your attention here because I'm not an accountant, you're an accountant, and of course, nothing here is financial advice. It's just, every person's different. But um, this person, Vicky, give her a shout out. She mentioned about the financial minefield and having to do all of this. And one of the things she mentioned was not being able to get clients to pay invoices. Do you have any tips, tricks, or advice around that?
Yep. So one thing that is always a big problem, and I think it's more a problem now than it used to be because a lot of times people are waiting to get paid so they can pay you, and it's like a chain of pays, and it's slow, and it takes forever. There's a couple things that, and it depends on your industry whether you can implement these kind of things, but so things like direct debit for recurring kind of fees, getting, making sure you have a written contract as well, because you might need to send it to collections, but being careful that you're not doing work before you're getting paid. Like in a retail shop, you'd pay and then you would get your thing, right?
Yes, yes.
So you need or in a service business, you know, if depending on the value, you could do a deposit up front. And that kind of gets them to commit to that. And you're not doing work where then you're not going to subsequently, not get paid for it. But you kind of have to be the squeaky wheel as well, because I find they'll pay the squeaky wheel first. And the person that's gently, they won't pay them till last.
Yeah, you're right. It is the squeaky wheel. It is the person that's constantly chasing up. And I guess if it does get to that stage of not being paid, then the next step is going to a debt collector, I guess, would be the next stage after that, after a certain amount of time.
You can send, this is kind of going into legal, but you can send like a letter of demand and you can get a template online for that. And sometimes just sending that makes people nervous and they will pay it. But then the next step is a debt collector. So one little tip if you're going to be using debt collectors is to look at your contract and include a clause that says that if you have to use a debt collector, that the client will then be responsible for the fees for the debt collector, because they'll take like 20% or something. And you want to be able to then say, well, this is the contract. We had to go to debt collection. You need to pay the fee. Their fee is this. So I recommend that. I got a debt collector told me that. So
Good tip to know. I didn't even think about that. That yeah, the debt collector wants their piece of the pie because they're chasing your money. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
there are some debt collectors that do no fee if nothing's collected as well. So you don't have to worry about paying and not getting something. So they won't charge you anything unless they're able to collect the money.
Beautiful. So I guess what is your, I would like to know if you're willing to share it. Do you have a big, hairy, scary goal for Tidball Accountancy Proprietary Limited? Like where are you hoping for it to go?
Well, I guess ideally I would like it to get to the point where I'm just reviewing work that other people do. So I have the staff in there doing the processing, and then I'm just reviewing that work. Because if you think about long term, we all want to retire. And the only way you can retire, you have two choices. If you have your own business, you either sell it or you have to remove yourself somehow so it runs without you. So I think initially I would like if I'm just doing the review and the staff are doing the work, then those staff are also getting more experience. So, and they would be also building the relationship with clients. And potentially then you could look at selling the business, down the line. But initially, I would like to just ride my horse, go review their tax returns, go to CPD and learn more about what's changed lately, and maybe step back a bit from the processing day to day.
So really like embracing your CEO vibes.
Yes.
That's, I like that as a big, hairy, scary goal. I like that, embracing your CEO vibes. That's good. And I like the whole riding the horse and then coming back and just like signing off a tax return and then just continuing on your journey on your horse, which is awesome. So, if you have another tip for our listeners, because you are the expert in tax and accounting and on all of that stuff, what would be a tip that you think the listeners should know, like a taste tester?
Well, I've kind of got two tips. So One tip I would say is if you're, because it depends on if you're starting out in business or you're already there, but if you're thinking about starting a business, one kind of tip I would give is to look at your finances before you quit your day job and, get that credit card, refinance your house, whatever you need to do to situate yourself. Because when you start your business and you quit, especially if you're taking that leap and you're quitting your day job, then banks will look at you as like you're unemployed practically at first until you build some history. And it used to be 2 years. Now I hear it's more like 1 year. But, when we start our businesses, they're not usually that great at the beginning. So um, I would say get your finances sorted first. And then the other thing I would say is don't avoid your numbers because, a lot of us think they're scary to look at, but they're really there to guide you. And um, I think it's just about, how I said, little steps make big change. So just start by like knowing one number because if you know, okay, well, this is, you know, my break even or this is my cash flow or, different things. This is how much I need to set aside for my tax. Then you can, bed that down and then build on it by going, okay, what else do I need to understand? And start using your numbers to make decisions rather than just that quick, is there money in the bank check? That so many people use that and then find out, oh, all that money was GST or tax or something else, and they really have nothing. So I hate having that discussion, but yeah, start with just knowing one number and build on that.
Beautiful. I love that advice. And yeah, don't, I guess, be blindsided by yourself because you weren't checking your numbers.
Yes.
So, and if there is anything you're not sure of, reach out to speak to your accountant or, people like you in the group that are amazing. You can jump on and answer a question or they can book in a call with you, of course, to have that answered. But yeah, don't be blindsided with well, at least it's only the ATO, and we did learn that the IRS is scarier. So it's only still pretty scary, still not a cool thing to deal, but it's still better than, I guess, the IRS. So, Teresa, how do we stalk you? Where do we find you?
You can find me on Facebook, my at Tidball Accountancy as our Facebook page. You can also find us on the website Tidball Accountancy. It's TID for dog, B for boy, ALL accountancy.com.au. Yeah. Pick a name that is easy to spell, as I would say.
I will pop all those links below. So just in case, and then anyone can just click them and they're already there, which is beautiful. But thank you so much for joining me today, Teresa, and sharing your journey and answering those questions. Finances seem to be something that a lot of business owners tend to avoid when it's one of the most important factors of your business. So I think it's really important to also realize that accountants aren't all scary and they are here to help because fundamentally you want to keep small businesses rocking because then you've got clients, right? And I
Yeah.
cool. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Kylie.